All right, I thought we would start the process of mixing. And the way that I'm thinking about doing this is by taking a song that a producer has sent over to us to mix. We have the stems. We don't know much about the production outside of that. So we're going to need to go through some processes to figure out what's what, organize ourselves. So the goal of this video, and I do want to kind of keep it in time, and I don't know about my video editing skills. We'll talk through what the mixing process is. We'll create a session, import the stems, organize those tracks by instrument groups and by color. And we'll start to build the static mix, which is really such a key and important part of the mixing process, especially for this last term well, not especially, but the gain staging. And we'll talk about that when we get there. Now, in terms of the mixing process, I think that it can mean different things to different people, or depending on what it is that you're doing. When we're making music digitally and we're at home producing, or we're in wherever we make our music, we're doing some mixing already. We're choosing sounds, we are adding effects, we're bringing volumes up and down. But the mix process is all of those things kind of interpreted, a step further, and really thinking about the end product as opposed to, the musical creation phase. We're thinking about things like, where do we hear these sounds? Is there movement? And what the final output volume is going to be, or amplitude. And it is a very creative phase of music making. In some respects, I find it one of the most, but that's because I've come to really enjoy engineering and working with someone's music to kind of add color, add some creativity, and make it sound, perhaps with my own little stamp on it. So these first parts of the process are pretty dry, I suppose. So, but going back to the process, so it's about balancing volumes. It's about placing sounds in the stereo field. It's about adding, making those sounds stand out on their own and together, whether that's through equalization or compression, dynamic control, adding effects that we feel as a mix engineer, add to the overall listening experience, sonic experience. So in any case, let's get to this part that we've already downloaded the stems off of Google Drive. They're in our downloads folder. We'll go over to Pro Tools. We'll create a new session. Let's call this Tame Impala with your last name on it, please. That's not anything close to Impala. Couple things, make sure that it's a 24-bit and it's a 48 kilohertz sample rate. Now the stems are actually at 44, so they're going to need to be converted. Interleaved is fine. That just means that the stereo tracks that are actually stereo are going to be treated as one file instead of two, a left and a right. So when you hit create, yeah, I already know there's a session by that. When you hit create, actually I don't want to do this. Yeah, I do, why not? You'll have a blank session. You'll go File, Import Audio. You will head over to your Downloads folder where you see Tame Impala stems. Open that up, highlight everything. So I'm just highlighting that first one, scrolling down, holding down the Shift key. Highlight everything. Hit Convert because your ultimate destination sample rate is going to be 48 kilohertz. All right, they are 24-bit. I'm not going to do this because this will take probably a good 2 to 3 minutes to process. So I'm going to go back to my old project that I already had. And even though it doesn't look like anything, I actually have all these tracks hidden. Okay. make sure that you also come up to track and create a stereo master fader. Okay, remember that it's called the summing bus. Hit create, because it is going to reflect all of the amplitude or the volumes of all of your sounds combined. And yeah, there you go. So we've created a session. We've imported the stems. We need to organize ourselves. We're in no place ready to start listening or making music. Listening, yes. Making music, no. The fan on my computer is really going off. Okay, so if I unmute all my tracks, so everything has imported and all of the levels of my tracks are at 0 or unity gain, including my master fader. I'm going to bring down the master fader because I just want to make a point here. If I just hit play, things are completely out of whack in terms of their volumes. Now, we don't know where these things came from. I kind of do, but, you know, were these processed with EQ or anything before they were committed and bounced down and sent to us? And because we don't really know that, or, you know, whatever could happen, our volumes are going to be all over the place. So I anticipate that if I press play, things are going to be very, very loud. Okay, so right away, we've got issues with balance of volumes, but that's to be expected. The one track that I don't want to affect right now, I want to make sure that my master fader is at unity gain, is at 0. So I'm going to hit option and click, and I'm back to everything's at 0. So if I hadn't brought that down, there'd be clipping immediately as soon as that bass came in, as soon as one of the drums came in. So the very first thing we're going to do is, actually the very first thing we're going to do is organize our tracks. And I like to do this by instrument. When I say instrument group, I mean drums, bass, there's multiple basses, pads, things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and find my main kick, and since they're close together here, I'm going to go ahead and bring those over to the left. I'm going to bring my hi-hat for the bridge because that's involved there. Shaker is a main part. Snare bridge, snare main. Okay, I'm just dragging these over. Snare percussive is kind of like an additional percussion. So these are basses. Beat up is some kind of a synth, I think. Then we get into the vocals. I think that's all the drums. Okay, so we have kick bridge, hi-hat bridge, snare bridge. So I like to do kick, snare, hi-hat or shaker in this instance. Because this is the main section, I would like to have it, because my brain, I've been trained this way, to kind of work through things from the left to the right. And if this is a later part, I don't need to have it, you know, the first thing I think of is what's on the left. So, okay, so I have that. Okay, so I'm going to add some color to these things so that I can kind of keep things organized visually. So, you know, upon import, all of your tracks look the same, and all of your audio clips kind of are randomly assigned a color. So I like to have all of my drums essentially the same color. And as you see here, so I double clicked in the far right track color area, and because these are all highlighted, I only had to press a color once. And if I want to assign a color to the actual clips, I have to highlight those clips and tracks and assign them the same color as my tracks, essentially. I'm going to do something similar for the, maybe a little bit different even, for the drums that are in the bridge. but I want them to be slightly different so that I don't confuse them. If I would, I don't even know. All right, so I've got 2 drum sections. This is, whoa, hey there. All right, I'm actually going to move this up to be part of this set of instruments of drums. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I closed my track list. So that was this. Highlight the track, give it a color. All right, so I have, the main drums and then the bridge drums. Now, a couple things here. I can't see much, so I'm going to go ahead and on my Mac hit Option. What is it for you all? It might be Alt. No, Alt is Command. Option, and I'm going to come over to my sizes. And I'm going to make everything small so I can see more. Okay, so now I have basses. I have 3 basses. So an organ style sound, a high pitched, and a low pitched. So I'm going to make those all the same color. Let's make those red. And then, so that's the first kind of red. Highlight, highlight, highlight. Red. Beat up. It's kind of unique. So I'll leave that as kind of a turquoisey thing. All right, now these pads, what's important to me is, are they playing all at the same time? And the one that seems to not be is this pad synth wah. So that one I'm going to kind of push off. I actually don't see anything on there. Did I bounce? Oh, that would be funny. Oh no, that just comes at the end. So I am going to move that one slightly because I'd like to keep it just off to the side a little bit. So all my pads and synths, I should say, I'm going to make green. Okay, right underneath the hold button. So highlight, 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 green. And then I have all my vocals. Vocals, vocals, vocals. And again, I don't know anything about these yet. I'm not listening to them. I am just, that's a really ugly yellow. I'm just organizing them for my sanity. All right, so if we look in the mix window, now we have our main drums, our bridge drums, all of our basses, our beat up effects, all of our pads, although I am going to take the arpeggio. That's fine because this is a pad that comes later. We have all of our vocals, and I probably will reorganize these again. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and do that already. So we have a lead vocal. We have a double of that lead vocal. We have Vox Harmony 1.1 and 1.2, and then Harmony 2.1 and 2.2. These are all essentially doubles, and if I were to listen to them, I'm pretty sure I could confirm that. So these harmonies most likely will pan, but we're not even there yet. Again, if I press play, things are just going to be all out of kilter. My point is made. That's pure distortion. Everything is just way too high. All right, so what we need to do is we need to bring all of our volumes down to nothing, to negative infinity. So the quickest way to do that is actually to click on this pre-made group, which is for all of your faders. So as soon as you activate that, everything's connected, including your master fader for that matter, but it's very easy to deal with. So we're just going to bring down everything to 0. I should say to negative infinity. 0 up here actually means unity gain and more or less full volume. I'm going to now disable that group. I'm going to come back over to my master fader option and click on my Mac, or bring that back up to 0. So this is now set at unity gain, which means it's going to be kind of all open. And we got to be really, really careful with this bus. It is kind of, it is everything. And when we talk about gain staging, so going back to kind of this building of the static mix, the gain staging should be bold and underlined. It is essentially how it's the curve of all of your volumes and how it is reflected in the master fader. Because this is the summing bus, when you're adding 20 plus tracks, you need to be very careful with how you introduce each of those volumes so that you never go into an area that would introduce distortion or clipping. And remember that digital clipping is much different than analog saturation or distortion that can actually be pleasing to the ear. So we're always going to aim, -10, maybe at most when everything's rocking and rolling, -6 to 8. So as we're introducing instruments like drums, I have to think, well, I can't go up to -8 with the drum set because I still need to add all these other instruments and I need to be able to hear them and all of that. So I'm going to kind of quickly go through this, and the goal, because I don't think I'm going to necessarily take it all the way as I check my stopwatch over here. I don't want to spend too long. This is already 16 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and press play and start introducing, and then kind of paying attention to the master fader as well. All right, so I am listening. Hey there. I'm already going to make a decision that I'm going to pan the shaker a little bit off to the left, maybe about 40. Often what you want to think about is going to a very loud section of the song so that you can kind of get a head start, a kind of a peek as to what it will look like in your master fader when everything is playing at once. So think I have found a section like that. Okay. There is I'm not at the bridge drums yet, so I'm going to skip that. And I haven't even listened to each of these individual sounds. But at a certain point, I do need to solo, and this is where solo comes in very useful, because there are 3 bass parts and they're playing all together. So what is going to be my final kind of mix or submix of the bass? So I'm going to need to identify each of those sounds. All right, so this one's kind of an organ type of thing. This is very high pitched. Okay, and this one sounds more or less like this track with maybe an octave below. So I think I want this one to be more pronounced. At least in my mind, this higher pitched one will help the sound cut through the mix, but this one's going to be the one hitting us in our chest. And this is rather soft, so we might have to do something with that later. Okay, let's see now in terms of balance with everything that we have so far. Too much bass still, but we can maybe even bring our drums up. All right, I'm just going to keep going. Let's see. working through identifying. And this is, in our hands now. As a mix engineer, you're getting to kind of say, hey, what sounds do I think should be most pronounced in the synth group, for example? So we have this kind of airy thing, which is very well named. This is almost like a little electric piano, like a very belly, which will help cut. Personally, I don't want it to be too prominent. I kind of like this. Okay, the arpeggio. Now, where is it? The danger of solo is concentrating too much on this without hearing it in the context of everything else. But again, we are just getting volumes and panning. Okay, let's see what's going on. Are there vocals down there? Yes, all the vocals are happening at this time.
Stop before it's too late. But you'll make the same old mistakes. You don't have what it takes. I don't care, I'm in love.
Okay, so this is, these two are doubles. Kevin Parker does some amazing vocal effects, including doubling and loads of delays, and we'll get to all that kind of stuff as we get into the creative phase. This is very much kind of a it's less subjective. I mean, there's lots of subjectivity in terms of balancing, but we're also being very careful in terms of volumes. And I'm trying to come up with a word that describes, we're not in pure creative mode right now. I do want to pan these harmonies, though.
I don't care, I'm in love.
Because I want to make space for the lead vocal and get some width to what's going on with the harmonies. Now, I don't know what these are yet, so I'm going to bring them up and match them just because maybe they were recorded at the same time.
I don't care, I'm in love.
Okay, those sound like higher harmonies than this one. So actually, as I think about panning these, I don't want to do the exact same pan width as the other harmonies. I'm debating whether these will end up going full left, right, but I'm going to keep these inside anyways for the moment.
I don't care, I'm in love. Stop before it's too late.
Okay, so I can hear everything, but I don't know anything until I hear it in the context of the music.
I don't care, I'm in love. Stop before it's too late. Feel like a brand new person. You make the same old mistakes. You don't have what it takes. Mistakes.
Okay, so I still have a couple things I haven't identified. We haven't gotten to the bridge yet, but this is the basic idea. We're aiming, we're a little low. I wouldn't mind getting up to about -6. We're about -10. So I still have some what's called headroom, some space that I can add to my mix. Now, there are some other things to keep in mind before we start using all of this headroom, and that is, what are we going to be doing in terms of processing to these sounds that might be adding to their amplitude as we do those processes, namely equalization and compression. I'm not going to get into it, but if you start boosting EQ frequencies, you are boosting amplitude, therefore you're boosting volume. What is this beat up? What is beat up? important part.
Got her regrets, but you've got your demons, and she's got her regrets.
Okay, I'm already making a note here. This bass plays, pretty long into that transition. I'm going to use my comment section here. Edit, bass. Oh, tempo. What is the tempo of this song? It's not 120. And having a tempo, even though this is all audio at this point, will be helpful for our effects, especially time-based effects like delays, which we will be using like heck, just to be honest. I'm going to double check this, but my memory tells me that it's actually 152. And careful, I just brought up my tempo change and my location's at 123. That's not good, so I got to hit return, change tempo, and I'm going to make it 152. All right, so that bass that I wanted to be careful about, and around, edit at 156, at measure 156. Okay, now some other things we could have kind of set this up earlier. I don't need real-time properties. That's for MIDI for the most part anyways, so I'm going to get rid of that because I need the space. I don't know if I'm going to be changing any I/O settings at the moment, but I don't have any instruments, that's for sure, so I can get rid of my instruments. I am leaving some comments for the moment. I will be inserting lots of stuff. But, this is all temporary. I can get rid of my I/O as, let's get rid of the I/O. Okay, just if you need it, you got to bring it back. I kind of miss it already, but that's okay. So we got the beat up in. Let's get back to the bridge drums.
Feel like a brand new person.
Wait, what's going on there? Oh, here are the bridge drums. Oh, there's drums. They duplicate. All right, this is why you need to get to know what's going on with your tracks.
You got your demons, and she's got her regrets. But I know that it's hard to digest. A realization is as good as a guess, and I know it seems wrong to accept.
So my thought on the panning here of the shaker and the hi-hat, because I saw that these things are playing together, if the hi-hat is going to be playing at the same time as the shaker, I want to give them their own space. So I'm going to have the shaker on the left, hi-hat on the right. So let's see what that sounds like.
You got your demons, so how will I know that it's right?
I'm going to go a little wider.
Too far.
Okay, right now I'm feeling that these are actually too loud. So there's going to be a lot of back and forth on this, but basically you want to have all of your sounds in so that you can hear them, so you know where they're at. So that's beat up, which is the one that I don't have in yet. I think it's this one.
Feel like a brand new person. That it's right.
Now I'll probably come back in steps, but I'm already thinking about all of these pads and synths and how they're quote unquote stereo. So in terms of the master fader, I am happier with where that overall volume is. I am not entirely happy with the balance of the instruments yet.
Feel like a brand new person. So how will I know that it's right?
I probably won't be keeping these equal, the leads at least, the ones that are in the center. This is going to be used for kind of being able to process them differently, get that thickness of the chorus effect of having two vocals trying to do the same thing, but not being perfect, which is what we're looking for. And yeah, I'm going to stop there because that is a fair amount of work.